A snapshot from Mars has rocked the scientific world, changing the way we think about the red planet.
The intrigue surrounding Mars has led to a shocking discovery. At first glance, it was just another dull Martian rock. But when NASA's Curiosity rover crushed it by accident, something strange spilled out.
Oh, yes, this is such a wonderful discovery and shows that Mars, our nearest neighbor planet, still has so many surprises in store for us.
Something no one expected to find on Mars. Scientists were stunned.
Scientists have discovered water on Mars. It is an underground reservoir.
This wasn't supposed to be there. Could this rare substance point to a hidden chapter in Mars's history? Or is it a clue to something far more mysterious? Join us as we explore the shocking discovery NASA rover filmed on Mars. An accidental discovery by Curiosity rover. Mars has a way of hiding its secrets in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal something extraordinary. In May 2023, as NASA's Curiosity rover casually rolled its hefty 899-kilogram frame over a seemingly dull rock, the planet did just that. The rock, unremarkable on the outside, split open under the rover's weight, and inside was something no one expected: bright yellow crystals of pure sulfur. This surprising discovery, found in the ancient Martian riverbed of Geddes Vallis Channel, was the first time that elemental sulfur, also known as brimstone, had ever been spotted on Mars. Scientists had already known that sulfates, a form of sulfur mixed with other minerals and often left behind when water evaporates, were scattered across the planet. But finding sulfur in its pure, uncombined form was something else entirely. Curiosity's sharp-eyed science team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory quickly realized the importance. Project scientist Ashwin Vasavada described it as finding an oasis in the desert. That kind of sulfur doesn't form easily. It needs very specific conditions, the kind scientists didn't expect to exist in that part of Mars. Even more exciting, Geddes Vallis appears to be full of similar-looking rocks, which means Curiosity might have just stumbled onto a much larger deposit. The sulfur discovery could change what humans know about the planet's geological past. Pure sulfur on Earth typically forms in volcanic regions or around hot springs, often involving reactions with life-friendly water and heat. But so far, no one thought those conditions applied to this area of Mars. This unexpected find raises big questions. Could Mars have had environments more diverse than we imagined? Did sulfur-forming processes, maybe even linked to life-friendly conditions, once take place in Geddes Vallis? Sulfur itself is vital for life. Though this discovery doesn't prove life ever existed on Mars, it adds to a growing collection of ingredients that could have supported life at some point in the planet's distant past. Water, organic molecules, and now elemental sulfur. All of them have turned up in Mars's dusty terrain. And the most incredible part? This entire breakthrough happened by accident. With the rover's instruments still going strong, scientists are eager to see what other secrets Mars might reveal next. But why has Mars always captured our attention so deeply? Long before rovers ever touched its surface. Humans' intriguing fascination. Many people today might not know that, about 60 years ago, scientists strongly believed that Mars had life. Before NASA's Mariner flybys in the 1960s, they imagined that Mars could be filled with water and even simple plant life, like moss or lichen. Josh Banfield, a Mars expert from the University of Washington, once explained that back in the 1950s and 1960s, Mars's colors in infrared light looked just like those of green plants. This made scientists think the planet had chlorophyll, a sign of vegetation. During that time, the idea of living things on Mars wasn't silly, but over time, thanks to NASA's discoveries, the fantasy of a living, green Mars faded. Today, astronauts explore what is really a dry, dusty, and lifeless world. Still, that hasn't stopped Mars from being a favorite place in science fiction and pop culture. When NASA's Curiosity rover landed on August 5, 2012, scientists were hopeful it could answer one big question. Could Mars have ever supported tiny life forms like microbes? The excitement was real, even without aliens with big heads. Bob Crossley, a retired English professor who wrote a book about Mars in literature, said that people were deeply fascinated by Mars because they believed it could host intelligent beings. But he also believed the red planet symbolized something deeper, maybe a dream of another world beyond Earth. For many, Mars stirred a quiet longing for something mysterious and far away. Mars has always stood out in the night sky. With its red color, snowy poles, and a day only slightly longer than Earth's, it's one of the most Earth-like planets out there. That's why it inspired creative minds like Ray Bradbury and Kim Stanley Robinson, who used Mars to explore human ideas. Bill Sheehan, an astronomer and author, once pointed out that public interest in Mars often rises and falls depending on how close the planet is to Earth. In 1956, during a close approach, fears about communism were high in the U.S. That time of fear and mystery was the perfect setting for alien invasion stories. Some movies used Mars to create scary monsters, while writers like Bradbury used it to quietly criticize politics and society. When the Mariner missions showed a dry, cratered surface in the 1960s, many people were disappointed. Mars, once so mysterious, looked lifeless. But even now, people remain curious. Crossley believes our view of Mars has changed, but it never really went away. Today, scientists and movie makers must balance facts with imagination. Movies like Mars Attacks and Total Recall entertain audiences, but more serious Mars stories often struggle. Still, people like space physicist Erica Harnett feel hopeful. She believes the real magic of Mars comes from how close it feels, and the dream that, one day, we might walk there and maybe, just maybe, find signs of life. But while imagination fuels dreams, what has real science actually achieved in exploring the red planet? NASA's Pathfinder mission. On July 4, 1997, NASA's Pathfinder mission was the beginning of a new phase in space exploration, continuous robotic study of Mars. Since then, at least one spacecraft has always been active, either orbiting or operating on the surface of the red planet. Today, 13 robotic explorers are helping scientists learn more about Mars. Between 1960 and 1996, 26 missions tried to reach Mars, but only 12 had partial or full success. In the early years, the Soviet Union launched 8 missions from 1960 to 1969. Most of them failed, and only Mars 1 and 2 made it out of Earth's orbit, though they lost contact before reaching Mars. The first real success came from the U.S. with Mariner 4 in 1965. It flew by Mars and took 22 black-and-white photos, revealing a surface covered in craters, which crushed hopes of finding a habitable world. Few remember Mariner 3, its twin, which failed because its solar panels didn't deploy. Due to many mission failures, NASA engineers joked about a mythical, great galactic ghoul. When controllers briefly lost contact with Mariner 7 in 1969, they blamed the ghoul until the signal returned and the mission succeeded, along with Mariner 6. In the 1970s, the Soviet Union had slightly better luck. 6 of their 7 missions achieved partial success with flybys, orbiters, and landers. In 1971, NASA's Mariner 8 failed to launch, but Mariner 9 became the first spacecraft to orbit another planet. It mapped 85% of Mars and helped NASA choose landing sites for the Viking 1 and 2 missions in 1976. Each Viking mission had both an orbiter and a lander. These landers were the first to send detailed images and test Martian soil for life. Although the tests didn't confirm life, the Viking missions worked far longer than expected. A renewed effort. A new chapter in Mars exploration began on July 4, 1997, when NASA's Mars Pathfinder landed successfully using airbag technology. It was the first Mars landing in 21 years and marked the beginning of continuous study of the Red Planet. Since that day, at least one spacecraft has always been working on or around Mars. For most of the past 25 years, several spacecraft have worked together, helping scientists learn more than ever about Mars. Mars Pathfinder's main job was to test new landing and exploration technologies. It brought along the Sojourner rover, a small 23-pound robot with wheels, the first rover ever to drive on Mars. Sojourner explored nearby rocks and soil, sending back exciting images and data. For the first time, the public could view these images from Mars almost instantly, thanks to the Internet. Although Pathfinder stopped working on September 27, 1997, it had already completed its mission. Meanwhile, another spacecraft, Mars Global Surveyor, entered orbit around Mars on September 12th and would begin its own long mission. Mars Global Surveyor orbited Mars for more than 9 years. It sent back over 240,000 images of the planet and created detailed maps of its surface. MGS also helped support future Mars missions, including the Spirit and Opportunity rovers that arrived in January 2004. Not all missions were successful, though. In 1999, Mars seemed to fall under the shadow of the Great Galactic Ghoul once again. That year, 3 spacecraft failed. Japan's Nozomi was the first. It was designed to enter orbit around Mars in 1999 and study its atmosphere. But earlier in the mission, it used too much fuel and couldn't adjust its course properly. Instead of entering Mars orbit, it flew past the planet on December 14, 2003, without being able to complete its mission. The year 2000s marked a big leap in Mars exploration, with the arrival of spacecraft that lasted much longer than expected and changed how we study the Red Planet. It all began on October 21, 2001, when NASA's Mars Odyssey arrived at Mars. After using a clever technique called aerobraking for 3 months to slow down and adjust its orbit, Odyssey began its job. Its main mission was to take detailed pictures of the Martian surface. But Odyssey did much more. It helped pick landing sites for future rovers and studied the planet's chemical makeup. It also acted as a communication link, sending data back to Earth from landers and rovers. In 2008, Odyssey discovered large amounts of water beneath the surface, something later landers confirmed. This spacecraft has worked so well that it's still running today, with operations expected to continue at least until 2025. 2 years later, on December 25, 2003, the European Space Agency entered the Mars race with its first mission to the Red Planet, Mars Express. This orbiter is still active and has sent back a wealth of data about Mars. Unfortunately, its lander, Beagle 2, which had separated from the orbiter 6 days earlier, failed after landing. It likely landed safely, but 2 of its 4 solar panels didn't open. This blocked the antenna, which meant it couldn't communicate with Earth. Meanwhile, a major international mission, Phobos Grunt, launched on November 8, 2011, aiming to study Mars's moon Phobos and return samples. It carried both Russian and Chinese parts, including the Yinghuo 1 orbiter. Sadly, the spacecraft's engine failed to ignite, leaving it stuck in Earth orbit. It eventually re-entered Earth's atmosphere and crashed into the Pacific Ocean on January 15, 2012. Just days later, NASA's Mars Science Laboratory launched on November 26, 2011, carrying the Curiosity rover. It landed in Gale Crater on August 6, 2012. Curiosity's mission was to search for signs that Mars once had liquid water. And it succeeded. For over 10 years, Curiosity has explored Gale Crater and climbed Mount Sharp. Sharp, rising over 2,000 feet from the crater floor. It has traveled 18 miles, drilled into 35 rocks, and captured thousands of photos, offering new views of both Mars and the sky above. Its work confirms that water once flowed on the red planet, and its mission still continues today. In 2014, 2 new orbiters joined the Mars fleet. NASA launched MAVEN on September 22, designed to study how gases escaped from Mars's atmosphere over time, helping scientists understand the planet's climate history. Just 2 days later, India made history with its first interplanetary mission, Mangalyaan. Though mainly a test of India's space technology, it carried cameras and instruments to study the Martian surface and atmosphere. Mangalyaan was a big success and marked India as the first Asian country to reach Mars. On October 19, 2016, the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, a joint project by the European Space Agency and Roscosmos, entered orbit to search for trace gases like methane, which could be signs of life. It also released a lander, Schiaparelli, which failed to land softly because its parachute deployed too early. Despite this, the orbiter remains active and continues its science work. The next major step came with InSight, a NASA lander that arrived on November 26, 2018. It was built to study Mars's inner structure using a seismometer and a heat probe. A new era. In late July 2020, a new era of Mars exploration began as a multinational fleet of spacecraft launched toward the Red Planet. These missions, led by the United Arab Emirates, China, and the United States, all arrived in early 2021, each with ambitious goals to expand our understanding of Mars and prepare for future human exploration. The United Arab Emirates launched its first interplanetary spacecraft, the Hope Orbiter, also known as the Emirates Mars mission. It entered orbit around Mars on February 9, 2021, making the UAE the first Arab nation to reach Mars. The Hope Orbiter was designed to study the planet's atmosphere and weather patterns over time, giving scientists a complete picture of how the climate changes daily and seasonally. The third mission to arrive was NASA's Mars 2020 mission, which landed on February 18, 2021. It delivered the Perseverance rover to Jezero Crater, an ancient lakebed believed to have once held water. Perseverance was built on the same design as the Curiosity rover, but featured more advanced scientific tools, a core drill for collecting samples, and a new technology, the Ingenuity helicopter. Ingenuity, a small drone designed as a test of flight in Mars' thin atmosphere, performed its first flight on April 19, 2021. Originally planned for just 5 test flights, it went on to complete over 30 successful flights, greatly exceeding expectations. Perseverance also began collecting samples of Martian rock, soil, and air. These samples are being sealed and stored on the Martian surface for a future mission that will bring them back to Earth. In addition, the rover carried an experiment called MOXIE, or Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, which successfully converted carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere into oxygen. This marked the first time that a human-made device produced a usable resource on another planet. A larger version of MOXIE could someday help astronauts generate oxygen for breathing and fuel production, making long-term Mars missions more sustainable. These 2020 missions represent major milestones in Mars exploration and lay the groundwork for future crewed missions to the red planet. What other secrets might Mars be hiding beneath its dusty surface? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.